Hello and welcome to Somewhere on the Spectrum. This week I want to read a little from Hannah Gadsby's 10 Steps to Nanette. If you haven't read it yet, I highly recommend you check out the book and also check out Hannah's specials on Netflix. She is very, very funny. She's a comedian from Australia and she's autistic, obviously. That's why we're reading her. And she's extremely good at what she does. In this section, I want to read to you about her diagnosis because I think many of you will probably be able to relate. As for the ASD part of my equation, the pathway from hunch to diagnosis was not a difficult process for me. But I don't want to give you the impression that it is easy for someone to get a formal autism diagnosis, especially later in life. I know for a fact that it can be prohibitively difficult. And I want you to be aware that autism in older women, non-binary and gender queer folk remains chronically underdiagnosed. I found accessibility and traction within the system due to my public profile. I didn't go out of my way to access this special treatment for myself, but that doesn't mean I get to erase the fact that I got it anyway. When I was moving forward toward the diagnosis, the focus of my research was on all the ways it made sense to me. It had been a thrilling exercise, a mystery to be solved. But as soon as I had my diagnosis, the thrill of it all but disappeared, replaced by a grief that was way too big for any metaphor I can think of. I had always worked under the impression that I would eventually find my way to the starting line of normal. But after I was diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder, I saw that not only was that not true, but I most likely had a very warped sense of what normal actually was. I felt sick for weeks. For a long time, I worried that I'd been misdiagnosed. It was difficult for me to believe that I wasn't entirely to blame for my life being such a painful struggle, because I was so used to assuming that I was a bad person. It took me a long time to get brave enough to simply share my diagnosis. My experience did not match the popular understanding of autism, and I knew I had to become an expert in neurobiology in order to untangle the myriad of myths surrounding autism, just to beg permission to claim that piece of my identity. I was right to be cautious because when I finally did start telling the world my diagnosis, the dismissals came thick and fast. I was told that I was too fat to be autistic. I was told that I was too social to be autistic. I was told that I was too empathetic to be autistic. I was told I was too female to be autistic. I was told I wasn't autistic enough to be autistic. Nobody who refused me my diagnosis ever considered how painful it might have been for me, and it got boring really fast. Ever since I can remember, my thoughts have been plagued with a sense that I was a little out of whack, as if belonging was beyond me. To give this feeling a story, it's as if I'm an alien who has been abandoned on Earth and left to muddle my way through life without a reason, a mission, or any memory of home. If you are a conspiracy theorist, this is where you begin to wonder if I might perhaps be a lizard. I'm not. Now piss off. I'm a visual thinker. I see my thoughts, but I don't have a photographic memory, nor is my head a static gallery of sensibly collected thoughts that my brain curates in easy sense. It's not linear. It's fluid and flexible, kind of like a private Wikipedia that I'm constantly revising and editing. But instead of words, everything is written in my own ever-evolving language of hieroglyphic films, filmed with hyperlinks to associated and often irrelevant thoughts. I've never managed to develop a reliable system to file and separate my thoughts into individual think pieces. And so I am utterly incapable of having one thought without at least another 100 coming along for the ride. Further complicating this issue is the fact that my brain doesn't work in the realm of the abstract. I'm not capable of thinking with imagery that I haven't seen with my own eyes, which means when someone tells me a story, I will see it as something like a film that I must edit together out of all of the other films sourced from my own internalized collection. Every single day I have spent on this earth, I have added countless images to my brain library. Needless to say, it is very busy in my head. If it were possible for someone to catch a glimpse of my thoughts being processed, they'd be hard-pressed to make sense out of it. I doubt they'd even believe that the tornado orgy of wingdings and gifs was anything other than gibberish. Sadly, the enthusiasm that my brain brings to the collecting of visual records is not then applied to the filing and retrieval process. And because of my inability to quickly and efficiently translate what I see into an externally communicable format, I am wired to have lots of fun and adventure in my head, while at the same time failing totally, utterly, and miserably at life on the outside and feeling profoundly alone. I believe that it is this whirl inside my brain that contributes to my inability to speak at times. To be clear, I don't identify as being nonverbal, but I often lose my verbal ability, especially if I'm overwhelmed by a lot of sensory information at the same time as I'm trying to identify, process, and regulate emotional distress. This is what is called selective mutism, which is a common comorbidity of ASD, but is not exclusive to it. Since making my diagnosis public, I have had some parents of nonverbal folk take me to task for identifying as autistic while not being as disabled as their child. To those people, I would like to say, I get it. I understand your frustration. It is my bet that you are not supported well enough, and that I seem like a good person to vent at. I don't mind, I can take it. But if it helps, it is not my intention to take anything away from you or your experience. All I want to do is help create something of a window into the internal workings of a manually processing brain. You know as well as I do that no two experiences are the same on the so-called spectrum. But I do know something of how frustrating and painfully lonely it can be from the inside. Ultimately, we are on the same team. When I told Mum that I was autistic, she said, "Yeah, that makes sense. I always knew there was a lot going on inside you, but I just couldn't get in. You're like a tin of baked beans and my tin opener wouldn't work on you." It's a tidy metaphor, especially if you know that my mum does not like baked beans. Hannah's book is filled with relatable content for autistic folks. Her humor is there, but alongside some of the heartache that comes with a life of undiagnosed neurodivergence. And in addition, she's gay. So she talks a lot about her experience from that perspective and some of the really bad experiences that she's been through as well. If you watch Nanette, you will find out more about those. So probably there does need to be a little bit of a content warning for the book if you have been through any sort of negative experiences like that. It is a great book. It is quite funny. It comes with Hannah's own sense of humor. It tells us a lot more about Hannah. Remember to check out her specials. She also has a couple of fun series on YouTube. I'll put them in the description. They're definitely worth a watch if you want to just kind of get an idea of who she is if you haven't come across her yet. Remember to like and subscribe if you find this channel useful. I would really appreciate it. All right, see you next time. Bye.